Throughout every single competitive game, buffs or nerfs do eventually need to start coming out. And of course, some of them are going to be a little bit weird. Stuff that we're not really expecting, and some ones that I feel like most people could agree on don't really make sense when looking back at hindsight. That's exactly what we're going to be doing today. Looking at the 5 nerfs that don't really make way too much sense, weren't enough, or really anything in between. With that said, if you agree with this list or disagree, make sure to tell me in the comment section down below, and mainly tell me who else you would rather put on this, and why. With that said, let's get started. So, IRISA's a little bit weird. She hasn't really been good at all ever since her release. Of course, she's been somewhat playable, but especially with Dive Comp coming out right after she came out, yeah, she can't do way too much, and it's really only gotten worse and worse. Of course, the buff with her E making it come out a lot quicker, that was nice. It made it quite a bit better. However, with that buff, IRISA also got a very weird, kind of unwarranted nerf. They made so that her damage did less. It was only about 9% or so, but even so, why? If you're trying to make a character that's very bad, I guess better, why happen to just make them slightly better at something, but slightly worse at something else? Of course, if they're very off meta. If you have a character that isn't being picked really at all, why not just give them a buff, see how it works, and then maybe if they become overpowered or too strong, take away that damage a little bit later. Putting it on the same patch honestly just seemed like a random thing to do, and honestly a mistake in my opinion. As we see with her damage lowered right now, she's doing even less than what she was doing before, and it's not really altogether all that great. So the fact that Lucio got nerfed isn't the problem here. Lucio definitely did deserve a lot of nerfs, and probably more nerfs than he even got when he originally was nerfed, like 3 or 4 times. However, my opinion with Lucio is that he didn't really get nerfed enough until his change. Of course, as he is right now, I think he's perfectly fine. I think that he works well as he is, and I think that the rework was overall a great idea. However, before that, I feel like he kept getting nerfs that were very small. 10% decrease in damage here, and then of course 10% slow, 10% less healing. Random changes that didn't do way too much against his kit. I did see that they were trying out the simple fact of, maybe if we change a few damage values, if we change a few numbers, maybe he'll slightly follow the meta and some other supports can come in. However, the way that his kit worked was just way too strong, and I feel like overall their idea, of course, changing him completely and reworking him was great, but when we look back then, yeah, the changes didn't really matter way too much. Soldier's damage nerf was something, but it wasn't that much. Of course, I feel like the thing that has changed Soldier from not being meta wasn't really his nerf at all, and he still is very much meta. However, it was just that Dive Comp became so much better. Winston became so much better. None of it was really to the fact that McCree got nerfed. I feel like the main thing was that everyone started picking up D.Va, which countered him. McCree's nerf, when you think of it, doesn't really make that much sense. His damage was insane, and they nerfed it by just a small amount. Not really enough to change up the meta, not really enough to make him weak, not really enough to do much of anything. He was still definitely the best DPS for quite a while until the meta changed, and as far as nerfs itself, it felt like one that was really quite awkward. I would have rather seen maybe a nerf to his heal, maybe a nerf to his Helix Rocket, or maybe just a much bigger nerf to his primary fire, but as it was, it felt like a nerf that didn't change way too much, and the meta overall stayed exactly the same how it was after, and overall his strength stayed pretty much exactly the same, taking maybe one more bullet to get a kill, which can be effective at some times, but especially versus tanks who would mainly focus on, it didn't seem to change way too much. Now, to Genji, I feel like personally right now, maybe he could get a nerf, Dive Comp Genji and Tracer, they're both pretty broken. However, Genji back in Season 2 wasn't that good. Of course, there was a lot of very great Genji players. There was Seagull, there's Shadow, there's a ton of other players that were showing off how great he could be, and everybody seemed to think he was overpowered, but his win rate did not match that at all. He had close to a 50 or even a 49% win rate, and overall wasn't doing way too great in games. He was doing okay, but not that amazing. Then, of course, the forums attacked. Everybody was on those forums complaining about Genji, be it on Reddit or, of course, on the battle.net forums. Wherever you could be, there was a complaint about Genji. And of course, Blizzard listened. They balanced the game based off what the community wants, and they nerfed Genji. Of course, getting rid of his best combo, and yeah, that was just a kind of weird time. He wasn't all that great of a hero, and he was in a meta that didn't really favor him all too much at all either, but I guess let's just nerf Genji because, yeah. Finally, I'm gonna talk about Roadhog, who I do feel like did need a nerf or a change or something different about him. However, the way they went about it, I feel like doesn't really work. Roadhog's only real reason to pick him was the fact that he was an anti-flanker tank that could one-shot people, and of course could also be kind of a carry tank in himself and pretty much be a DPS. He can get picks, take people out, and go on from there. Right now he can kind of do that, but not really. Of course he needs his teammates, and mainly people can just get out of his hook now and not die off of it. I feel like a lot of people have overall said that it's just too weak, his change in damage didn't really work out way too well, and that there could have been a lot of better nerfs somewhere else. Now, we already heard a ton of ideas on this while Roadhog was pretty much about to be nerfed, so I don't want to go into that way too much. I feel like a simple change on his hook should have been the thing that they started at instead of completely changing him up. Of course, personally, I feel like Roadhog doesn't really fit into the game way too greatly with how his kit works, and I do feel like overall it would be nice if he got a semi-kit rework, could change it up a little bit, and fit into the game just a bit more as a tank like they wanted him to be, than this kind of weird like assassin tanky hero that he kind of turned out to be. But as far as it is right now, they changed him way too much, and I'd really rather have them just revert it and give him a complete rework or give him a complete different change than where he is right now, which is not way too great. Another thing I want to remind you guys is that Roadhog didn't even have that great of a win rate, and while he did okay versus dive, he still didn't really counter way too hard. And right now, he does even worse against it, so we have that problem as well. Overall, again, I hope we sometime soon get a change with this guy. Anyways, with that said, as always, this is just my own personal opinion on the heroes that I personally feel like got nerfed for one reason or another one that didn't really make way too much sense, was kind of dumb. I don't know. That's at least my own personal opinion. If you have your own opinion, make sure to leave that down in the comment section down below. As well, like if you want to see any more top 5s like this in the future. Subscribe if you want to see any more content about Overwatch. Mainly, a lot of top 5s as I do them pretty much once a week. As always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And as always, have a wonderful day.